community is constantly threatened by coastal flooding. We live right on the coast, with the Atlantic Ocean on one side and our sounds on the other side. And what we are having to do to address this is actually a locally funded beach nourishment project. So beach nourishment, beach stabilization. We couldn't wait on federal funding because we're in too much of a jeopardy of losing our infrastructure and our livelihood. We rely on tourism in our area exclusively. In one way or another, everybody that's in our community is impacted by tourism, and the threat of not having our beaches and the implications that are associated with that with coastal flooding are too enormous. So we have launched on a locally funded, between state and local government, beach stabilization and nourishment project. It's costing taxpayers. All of us are having to pay more, and those who live along the ocean front are paying even higher tax rates moving forward, but it was a matter of we have to do something. The support that we need is really not just in our community. The support we need really starts at the federal level, trickles to the state, and down to the local level. And first and foremost, it's just an understanding and appreciation of what we're dealing with. I think there's a lack of cohesiveness of understanding that we have such a significant threat to our livelihood, our folks' safety, and infrastructure. And so along with that, after the understanding, is certainly resources, whether it's financial resources, other resources just from an education and awareness standpoint. Trying to connect the dots for people that aren't thinking of this all the time is a challenge, and so getting people from thinking about the data to feeling what the potential impact's going to be, that takes resources from a campaign perspective of awareness and education. And those would be resources that would be invested not just to benefit our community, but would benefit communities that are all around us that are struggling with these same challenges. I think when a storm's coming and you have an immediate threat, people have a heightened sense of awareness. But that's only at a short amount of time. But the risk doesn't go away just because the storm's not off our coast. So there's an ongoing awareness and education that's essential. And it takes resources to do that. And it also takes very strategic message development. And I think that's another way that federal, state, and local governments can work together on messaging and putting out those resources. It's incredibly important for this bipartisan group to get together and discuss this. First and foremost, just the significance of having a bipartisan, or nonpartisan, so to speak, group of officials. I, as an independent, sitting, beside a Republican, beside a Democrat, it's really important that we're all around the table because flooding is not a partisan issue. The impacts of significant coastal flooding know no partisan boundaries. And it's a discussion that has to be had on a much bigger picture than a partisan picture. The solutions that we're gonna come up with and have to implement in local communities have no partisanship relation, and they shouldn't be. I would like to see the federal government help us with planning, first and foremost. And it takes resources to plan. It takes folks with the information to come together and work in local communities to help come up with a plan. We've been talking about, we've had to implement a local strategy to put sand on the beach to help with storm mitigation and coastal flooding. But we need a broader plan on responsiveness and first assessing what are all of the threats, and then what are some other ways that we can be working to mitigate those threats beyond just our first and foremost, we need to do beach stabilization. I think also looking from a broader perspective, I represent one town. There's 6 towns in our county. But what affects us is affecting the same, our neighbors. And so while right now in Dare County we're looking at 3 towns doing simultaneous beach stabilization projects, the greater picture and the greater answer isn't going to be each of us doing our own thing. It has to be kind of a collective, broader approach. And I think that's where both the state and the federal government has a huge role that they can play. Specifically on the projects we're working on, we meet periodically with the county and all of the the municipalities that are involved. We started this, we started meeting specifically on this nourishment project about a year and a half ago. Prior to that, though, all of the towns in the county were represented on basically a task force or a committee. But that's really just our county and our towns. We neighbor counties on both sides of us that are struggling with these same issues as well. There is a group in North Carolina called the NC20, which is made up of representatives from the 20 coastal counties, but they haven't taken it so far as we don't have a plan even for those counties or that region. Again, I think that's where state and federal resources and assistance would be of value. I very much appreciate the host of this conference, and I hope that this summit is just a stepping stone for future summits and future gatherings of elected officials and stakeholders, because this isn't, it's not a problem that's going anywhere.